What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dude Nurse Show. I'm your host, the Dude Nurse. I gotta get some better drums because that just doesn't sound as awesome as I'd like it to. But anyway, thanks for tuning back in, everybody. Really appreciate all the support as of late. Thank you. Thank you. Today, we are going to talk about something that I think everybody can relate to, and that's going to the emergency room. Now, like I said, we can all relate. I know we've all been there. I know I've been there a million times because I was an ER nurse for a long time, so I went all the friggin' time. But if you've ever had to go to one as a patient, it's not necessarily the most pleasant experience, and not because of poor service or whatever from the hospital, or because you got a crappy nurse or a crappy doctor. I'm not talking about that. That certainly can uh, you know play a role in your experience, but I'm talking about you show up and the waiting room may or may not be full, and you get in there and you think, oh, okay, it's not too bad, so I'm not going to be here too long. Well, 2 3 hours later, you're still sitting there and the waiting room's a lot fuller, and you're looking around going, hey, I was here before all of these people. How come they got to go back and I've already seen 5 of them leave that got here after me? That can be frustrating because we're kind of accustomed to first come first serve when we go out, and you go to a restaurant kind of a thing. Although they do have, a lot of them have call ahead seating where you can have reservations. Those folks are likely going to be taken first. So think of this as like reservations in the ER, although it doesn't really work that way, but stay with me. So if you come in, you likely think you're dying. You're vomiting, you're shitting all over the place, you're coughing, you're sneezing, you're in pain. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to exist. Okay? You're just miserable. And in your mind, like I said, you're fucking dying and you want some relief. You want somebody to do something to take away whatever it is that you're feeling. Okay? And that is the goal. That's what we're there to do. Okay? But that person that came in and was complaining of chest pain, and or maybe they were symptomatic of a stroke, or when they go through triage, which is usually the first time you see the nurse, not necessarily the person at the window, just answering questions. I'm talking about when you go back and you see a nurse, they start taking a history, they start checking your vital signs, blood pressure, pulse, all that kind of stuff. They can do EKGs, they can even, draw some lab work if they need to. That's what I'm talking about when I say triage. So the triage nurse assigns you what's known as an ESI, Emergency Severity Index. Okay, and it goes basically from like 1 to 5, 1 being the most severe, 5 being pretty much, you're gonna live, you're just gonna wait a while. Okay, so we base those numbers around subjective and objective data that we receive from you, the patient. Okay. Now, first of all, I'm not telling you don't go in there and complain of chest pain and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm really here because, I have an ingrown toe and it really hurts. That's not cool. That's going to get you shunned, and you're going to get probably some shitty service because you're a douchebag for doing stuff like that. Okay. If you're in there with an ingrown toe, you don't need to be in the fucking emergency room in the first place. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So when you, like I said, you go in there, you're assigned basically a category, and again, it's based on your chief complaint, as we call it. What are you here for? What is the main reason that brought you to the ER? if you have, your back hurts and you have a headache and it's hard to breathe and you've been coughing and you've got 85 things wrong with you, what was the one thing that got your ass up and brought you to the ER? That's going to be your chief complaint. Okay. So that's kind of how it works. If you're sitting out there and there's a lot of people coming in and going straight back, they're probably a lot sicker than you. So count your blessings that you don't get to be first. Being first in this case isn't necessarily the best, because like I said, may have something a little more severe wrong with you, unless you have Munchausen's or something. That's not a good thing. Okay, and so when you come in, be honest with the staff. Let them know, why you're here. Again, that chief complaint. So, but and the purpose of an emergency room is for emergencies. When I was an ER nurse, 95% of the shit that I saw coming in, wasn't emergent. And so, you also have to keep in mind too that you're out there in the waiting room or the lobby, whatever you want to call it. In the back, we also have ambulances showing up with people. We also have some hospitals have helicopters showing up with people. Those are really sick people. Okay, they come in on life flight or whatever helicopter transport system they use, but those people are pretty sick. They've been in a severe car accident, or they're having a stroke or a heart attack or whatever. Something bad happened. Okay, so those people are gonna get to go to the head of the line ahead of you and your aching back. Sorry, that's just the way it is. We take the most severe always, and you could sit there for a while. Okay, and so this kind of led to the invent of like urgent cares or freestanding ERs. Those are the places you want to go. Think of them as basically like an extension of your primary care physician. Okay, you can go in there for minor things. If you're having chest pain and you can't breathe, you don't need to go there. You need to call 911 is what you need to do, and go to a hospital, because if you're having something severe, you're basically going to delay the care that you receive, because a lot of these urgent care / freestanding ERs, whatever the hell they're calling themselves, they're simply not equipped to handle real, true emergencies. I'll give you an example. Like, say, for example, a patient comes in to a freestanding and, they're like, I'm just having a little bit of chest discomfort. And we put them on a monitor, do 12 lead EKG, and we determine that they're having what's called a STEMI, ST segment elevated MI, myocardial infarction. It's a heart attack. It's a specific kind of heart attack. The protocol says that they need to go to the cath lab ASAP. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Straight to the cath lab. Okay. Those freestandings, those little urgent cares, they don't have a cath lab. They just don't. You have to go to a major hospital for that. So keep in mind where you're going and for what. Okay. If you're, again, think of it as kind of an extension of your primary care physician. And a lot of those places, they won't see you until they see your insurance card. And at a hospital, that's absolutely illegal to do. It violates what's called EMTALA, Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. So basically, when I was working in the ER nurse, I did work at some urgent care, so I'm very familiar with how they work. When you come in, it doesn't really matter what the hell your chief complaint is. They're going to say, I need to see your ID and your insurance card. When you go and check in at a major hospital, they're not going to ask you that. They're going to get you back, make sure you're not having a true medical emergency, then they're going to send in the registration folks, and they're going to deal with your insurance and taking payment, and if you owe a copay and all that other kind of shit, they're going to work through all that with you. So keep that in mind too. If you go to some of these urgent cares, you know, if you don't have insurance, you're not going to get seen unless, maybe you fall out in their lobby or something. Then they probably help you or call 911 for a bus to come get you. But I mean, so just keep in mind where you're going and why. Okay, just because you got there first doesn't mean that you get to go back first. It's again based on the level of severity, and that severity is determined by a registered nurse, triage nurse, whenever you go back. And so sometimes when you go back, you'll see the triage nurse and say, all right, go back out and have a seat in the waiting room. We'll call you in a little bit. Or sometimes they may say, all right, come on back with me. And so, that typically means that you probably need to be seen a little bit quicker. Okay. One of the things that healthcare has done is create this, sense of entitlement in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I think everybody should be entitled to quality healthcare, but at the same time, people are, me first, me. And I think the better that you can understand what is actually going on and, know a little bit of the background as far as, okay, I'm coming to this ER, there's 500 people in the waiting room, there's a good chance I'm going to have to wait a while. Again, if it's something that's relatively minor, you can likely go to an urgent care and they'll get you in and out super quick. And if you get there and it's something that's, kind of out of not their scope, but basically out of the capabilities of their particular facility, they will transfer you to another hospital. Like for example, pediatric cases. If they needed any kind of more invasive care, we always transferred pediatric patients out of these urgent cares. Even major hospitals. Pediatrics is a very specialized area of medicine and nursing, and so we would usually transfer those kids down to Children's Memorial Hermann down in the medical center, the Texas Medical Center in Houston, or Texas Children's. And so we transfer them to someone who's better equipped to take care of these kiddos. Sometimes they'd go by helicopter, depending on what was going on. But by and large, they'd go by ambulance, depending on whether or not they were stable or not. But so transfers and things like that happen all the time. And I'm not suggesting that you folks should know really what's going on with you. You may think you just have a really, really, really bad headache, but you could be having a stroke, and that could be the only symptom. You're probably not, but it's possible. So, when in doubt, always get checked out. That's what I say. But I think a lot of people overlook the fact that, if they're thinking that it's something severe enough that they need to go to the ER, they overlook calling 911. Because if what if you get behind the wheel and you really are having a stroke and you veer off and you kill 12 people, but you survive, that would be the kind of luck I'd have. I'd have to live with the guilt, and I'd be paralyzed on one side, couldn't speak, end up in a nursing home. But hey, I lived, but I killed 12 people. I don't want to live with that on my conscience. So just be careful. If you really think you're having a medical emergency, 911 is your friend. Okay. Even as medical professionals, I've scared myself into thinking I was having a heart attack. You know, I've struggled with anxiety in the past. There's certain triggers for it, and over the years, I've learned to kind of deal with it. You know, and I don't mean, you know, like a sound or something triggers it, like PTSD or something. I'm talking about like if I eat too much and my stomach is really full and it's kind of pressing up on my diaphragm, it, excuse me, makes it a little bit more difficult for me to breathe, and then I then interpret that as, oh my god, I can't breathe, and you know, on and on and on. So I'm talking about those kinds of things, and that's something that, you know, can be managed at an urgent care if you're having a, you know, an allergic reaction or something. You've been stung by a bee, or you know, you need some antibiotics. You're having maybe a little bit of belly pain or something, you know. But of course, belly pain could be something more severe. Could be a ruptured cyst. I mean, who the hell knows? Um, you know, and so they'll kind of determine what else needs to be done. And then too, keep in mind, like for example, at some of the urgent cares, like they don't have MRI machines. They almost always have a CT machine. They have X-ray. They have ultrasound. Although sometimes the ultrasound people may be on call. So you know, but that happens sometimes at hospitals too. I've seen that happen. But anyway, like I said, if you're in doubt, get checked out. You know, you don't want to play it cheap with your health, because I can tell you this: when it comes to severe issues, whether it's trauma, allergic reactions, severe allergic reactions, anaphylactic shock, sepsis, stroke, heart attack, blood loss, anything like that, seconds count, people. Trust me, seconds count. It could mean the difference in saving your life or not. And so, you know, if your insurance is only going to pay, you know, half of that $1,000 ambulance ride, I mean, you know, at least you're alive to bitch about it, right? And a lot of the times, and again, I'm not an insurance expert, but this has kind of been my experience. If you come to the hospital via ambulance and you end up getting admitted, I think a lot of insurances don't even make you worry about it, because obviously, you know, it was pretty severe enough for you to come and then be admitted. That happened to me once. I was basically almost in like in between heat exhaustion and heat stroke one time. It gets fucking hot down here in Houston, folks. Let me tell you. And I wasn't staying hydrated like I should have, and I ended up, you know, going to the hospital. I called 911 like a good boy, and they get me there, and my blood pressure was sky high. I was super dehydrated. I had a horrible headache, and after they ruled out a stroke and all this other crap, they got me kind of squared away in the ER. But they said, you know what, we're going to keep you for a couple days just to make sure. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have to worry about paying that big ass ambulance bill. And I never had to. So then again, you know, maybe that was just my insurance. But when in doubt, get checked out. Don't be cheap with your health. So that's going to conclude this episode of the Dude Nurse Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Want to remind you guys again, if you're interested in hospice or have some questions or have some loved ones on hospice or thinking about going into hospice, check out my book. It's on Amazon, Kindle edition. It's only $7.99. It's called The Way of All Flesh, written by me, Greg Pierce, the Dude Nurse. I had my first sale the other day. I was pretty stoked about that. So whoever that was, thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show and supporting the book and everything. It means a lot. It helps keep me doing this, which is talking to you guys, which is what I love to do. Until next time, the Dude Nurse saying take care of yourself and each other. Be well.